Good evening, everybody, and welcome to CanHammer, your source for 40K from the Great White North. This is episode 4 of On The Vox, and tonight I have a guest with me who probably needs no introduction, but my guest tonight is Pablo Martinez from Frontline Gaming. So say hi, everyone, Pablo.
Hey, everyone. How are you doing? It's actually a Pablo, not Pablo.
Oh, sorry, Pablo.
Pablo is how Canadians, Brits, and pretty much everyone except my family and the people in San Diego call me Pablo. It's okay. It's no big deal.
Sorry about that. So what's interesting is that you're usually the interviewer, and so today or tonight you're getting interviewed on the other side of the mic there.
I know. It's actually refreshing. I didn't have to think up any questions. I just have to talk. It's great.
Yeah, so obviously everybody knows you from your work with Frontline Gaming and your podcast, which is called Chapter Tactics. So I guess I'm just going to start from the beginning, and I just want to know how and when you got into 40K.
So this actually started a long time ago, about 15 years ago. I was a young lad, and I went into my local gaming store. And I played Magic. I thought I was a hot shot in Magic, actually. Turns out I wasn't. I was just a cheeky little kid. However, there was an APOC game one day when I walked in, and I was really into StarCraft at this age. I was into StarCraft and Magic, the quintessential nerd trifecta, along with video games, specifically like Pokemon.
Yep.
So, the nerdiest trifecta you could think of. And I saw this APOC game, and I saw blue Space Marines. And they looked exactly like the StarCraft Marines that you first start off with in the first mission in StarCraft.
That's right.
Because your Marines are blue.
Yep.
Because you're like militia. So immediately I was like, oh my God, this is exactly like StarCraft. And then there was Tyranids.
Which are like Zerg.
The models all, which are basically like Zerg. And then I specifically remember Defiler standing on top of a tower. And I was just like, that is so cool. Now, thinking back on it now, I realize that those guys, they were having fun. They weren't really like playing the game tactically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you would put a Defiler with that battle cannon on top of a tower where you can't charge things and shoot at things. So he kind of just hung out up there.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I started. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I had a friend who had an Ultramarines army. Space Marines are about 3,000 points that he just didn't want. They were poorly painted.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked if I could have them, and he said, yeah, sure. And so the rest is history.
Oh, sweet. So you actually just inherited your first army.
Yeah. None of those models are left, by the way. They are all sold or lost in the warp. So they got me into the game, but it was like a Terminator squad or two, some Bolter Marines with plasma guns, a Rhino and a Predator and a Vindicator, the Vindicator, and that was it. And
is that your favorite army then, Space Marines, or?
Yes, absolutely.
And is that
I don't think I've played any other army.
Is that because of how you sort of got into the hobby? That is kind of like StarCraft.
Yeah, I've always really, like, when I played StarCraft, I was always the happiest as the color blue. When you play RTSs, a lot of the times in the lobby you get to pick your color, so I'd always go for blue. And on top of that, the Ultramarines, I immediately, when I saw the blue Space Marines, I looked through all the chapters and saw that the Ultramarines were blue, because they were painted that traditional Ultramarine blue. And then I just fell in love with the fluff behind the Ultramarines, like Calgar, and I don't really like Cato Sicarius too much, but like Ventress and like that honor and duty and logic override everything on the battlefield. I've always liked that kind of perspective in my sci-fi fantasy military settings.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of drawn to them.
So you must have been happy to see Gulliman coming out, or not that excited?
Oh my God, I was so I'm still happy. Everyone swears that he sucks, and he kind of does. I mean, my Gilliman model's in the other room, so he can't hear me say this. He's not good in the competitive scene right now. He's just not good. But I keep trying to make a list around him. And we have a funny story. I have a funny story about that. So when Gilliman first came out, we got one as soon as we got them a little bit early because we have a store. Frontline Gaming sells Games Workshop product, so we get product a little bit early before release. So I immediately grabbed one and said this one was mine.
Yep.
And the allocation policy for GW site, basically we only get a certain amount. So we had hundreds and hundreds of orders, but I told everyone in the store like 2 years ago that if they ever made a Gilliman model and he came back, like I would be the first one. Like the first one goes to me immediately. So we got one, and everyone was like, Pablo, there's people who've ordered this. And I said, no, I reserved this 2 years ago. I'm so sorry. Everyone eventually got their Gilliman, so no big deal. Yeah, so I got my Gilliman. I got it painted through our painting studio. It was beautiful, it was gorgeous. And then Mini Wargaming, we had kind of an agreement with them where we were going to paint a model for them, and they were going to showcase it. And it was going to be like a video, and so they voted to see which model they would want to showcase. And of course, the Triumph of the Primarch just came out, and Gilliman was the model they wanted. And so I elected to give my Gilliman to the Mini Wargaming crew.
Oh, you
so
did?
They could, yeah. So I was like, you know what? They can have that Gilliman. So I was without a Gilliman for like a month. And then I eventually got one, got it painted. So I'm happy now. But yeah, so,
I hope they know that it was a big sacrifice.
It was a pretty big. I was pretty bummed because they all looked at me. They're like, "Oh, we need a Gilliman model fully painted," and I looked at mine. I was like, "Oh, give it to Mini Wargaming. They're amazing." I mean, they helped get me into the hobby. So see, it was kind of like I took one for the team, but instead of like the fat chick or like the crazy chick at the bar, she wasn't that bad.
Right.
Like the morning after you realize like, oh, all right, I could have, so it wasn't that bad taking one for the team, but anyways. I love Gilliman. I love the Ultimate. Go on. Sorry.
Is that how you thought his name was pronounced? That's the question on everybody's mind.
Oh, okay. So this is another thing, that a lot of people give me flack for. This is one thing but I come from a Hispanic background, and Guilliman is French, and French is Latin root words. And in French and Spanish, the double L sound in Guilliman's name is yi.
Yeah.
Like Yoshi, or it's the Y sound. So I always pronounce it Guilliman, just because he was French and it was a Latin root name. So Guilliman is how I traditionally pronounce him. But a lot of people don't understand who I'm talking about when I say it. So I'll be like, oh yeah, Guilliman, he's my favorite Primarch, and they're like, who? And so I say Guilliman so people know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I'll get you there. Yeah. Is he French though? Are Ultramarines French? I don't know.
He is French. Ultramarines, they never surrender, so they're not French. They might be French Canadian, because everyone hates them. And from what I've heard, a lot of people dislike French Canadians. I'm not sure. Is that true or not? I don't live in Canada.
I don't know. No comment.
But yeah, Reboot Guilliman is supposed to be of French origin.
Okay.
So
I'll take your word for it. You're obviously a big fan. So speaking of Frontline Gaming, how did you end up with Frontline Gaming?
I asked. A lot of people ask me that question every day. People tell me that I have like a dream job, and I think I do. I really love my job. Although I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a dream job. It's definitely a hard-working job. We are a small business. We don't look it, but we are. And with a small business comes a lot of work and a lot of responsibility. So we all work really hard. I'm working, right now specifically, I'm working, 10, 12-hour days, and it's a lot of fun. They did give me my own podcast. But if you were to want to work for Frontline Gaming, it's more to it than just asking them and saying like, hey, I want to work with you guys. You have to be really passionate, and you have to show them that you really want to work for them, and it's not something that you're going to take lightly. So yeah, so I kind of just told them like I wanted to work with them, and there were a couple buddies of mine who kind of encouraged me to talk to Reese and Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't super starstruck when I met them. I'll be a little honest. I wasn't a big fan of Frontline Gaming's bat reps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I really liked what they did with ITC and with tactics articles. So I liked that part of Frontline Gaming and what they did there. Which I was more drawn to. So I talked to them. Friends encouraged me, and there was kind of like I would show up every day, help them with the Twitch streams. Occasionally, I'd help them move stuff around in the warehouse if they needed to, and then I just kind of like stuck around and gave them someone to rely on. And then eventually, they were just like, "Hey, do you want to work here full time? Do you want to quit your shitty job at SeaWorld?" And actually, my job at SeaWorld wasn't shitty, but do you want to quit your job at SeaWorld and work with us full time? And I was like, yeah, why not?
Sweet.
See where it takes me. Yeah.
Sweet. So I know obviously that lots of people know what Reese and Frankie aim to do with Frontline Gaming, but I don't know if many people have asked you that or if that's public knowledge. Where do you see Frontline Gaming in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years?
Oh my gosh. There's Frontline Gaming. I can't give up company secrets.
Yeah.
But there's Frontline Gaming. We've got a lot of big stuff planned. Reese is an innovator. He's always bouncing ideas off of us, and he's always working to improve the company and working to improve our work environment. So I see Frontline Gaming becoming huge in 5 years. We have a lot of ambition and we all work really hard. And if we keep the same team and we keep the pace we're going, we could have a full blown large tournament circuit from the ITC competitive 40K side. I see, articles and more tactics articles, of course, everything else we do, but just more. And then on the store side, it's if we grow, we do everything right now. We paint. We have a painting studio. We have a secondhand shop service. We sell GW product. We make our own terrain.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own gaming mat line. So, the sky's the limit for this company. It's kind of cool.
And do you have an official title, or what is your main responsibility there, other than the podcast, obviously?
I'm officially the warehouse manager. That's what it
Okay.
says on my business card. But I like to call myself the junior editor or I can't believe I'm blanking, the PR director, public
Okay.
relations director, because I run the Twitter account.
Sure.
And currently my podcast has the most downloads out of everyone's podcast. So I'm beating everyone into the ground in terms of views. Which is just something I joke around with the guys. Obviously that's not something we're super competitive about. But I do have a lot of social media presence now, which is just kind of new to me because I have to watch what I say a lot of the times online, which I've never actually had to deal with before.
Mm-hmm.
So I jokingly call myself like the PR guy.
Yeah. So that leads me right into my next question, which was, you obviously have a presence online in the Warhammer community, being maybe one of the more visible parts of Frontline Gaming, and obviously you have a lot of listeners on your podcast. So, you were just starting to say a little bit about that, like how it's kind of like a minor celebrity status. Like how does that?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? And is that something that you enjoy, or?
I would say it is definitely something I enjoy. I'm not on Reese and Frankie's level or even like Jeff and Control Robinson. I'm not on their level by like a long shot. So it's not just it's more I'm like the CList celebrity who's one bad Twitter comment away from getting their career destroyed. That's kind of how I feel. Because because people know who I am, but not a lot. I feel like not a lot of people either put me like, I don't want to say put me on a pedestal, but people don't see me as like that celebrity that they're like, oh my God, he's awesome. Or, oh, that I know who that guy is. He's the Frontline Gaming guy. So a lot of the people who know me, I feel like they're already a part of the competitive 40K community, and they see me like talk on Facebook and talk on my podcast. So it's a little more intimate with the people who do know me, my quote unquote fans. I don't think I really have fans. I probably have like listeners and but yeah. So this basically I feel like a C-list celebrity pretty much.
Well, it's already been shown that if you become the president, then you can tweet whatever you want without any problem.
Yeah, if I became the president, I would go to town on a Twitter account. I would definitely do a better job than Trump. Because I feel like he's half-assing it. I feel he should either go full troll mode and just go all out, or kind of like be a straight shooter. Like, none of this like uninformed. I'm not. By the way, I'm politically I'm not right or left. So for those of you who are maybe Trump supporters, like I just think it's hilarious what he's doing, and from that perspective. But yeah, I would, if I were the president, I would go full blown troll mode, which is probably reason enough to not vote for me for president. If I ever ran for president, please don't vote for me, guys. No matter how much I ask.
You've heard it here first. If Pablo declares his candidacy, don't vote for him.
Don't vote for Pablo.
You wouldn't be able to do the podcast anymore.
That's so true. I would probably have no time to play 40K.
Yeah. So let's talk about your podcast then, Chapter Tactics. What gave you the inspiration for starting that?
Reese and Frankie, they low key told me to run a podcast. They basically, what happened was I'd recently gotten in trouble for saying something online that I wasn't supposed to say. I won't say what it was, but I do see that now that it was a mistake. And occasionally, even Reese and Frankie, they'll occasionally do it. Sometimes we say something and it comes back to bite us. If it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. It could just be something like, oh, I really like this rule in this Forge World book because it does this. And then someone might say that, oh, Frontline Gaming said that tarantula batteries fire at ballistic skill 6 now, or something silly. Yeah. That occasionally does happen. So they talked to me and they kind of told me like, hey, people, they keep an eye on you. They you're on our video battle report sometimes. So watch what you say. And by the way, you've been doing a good job in the company, so we're going to give you your own podcast. And I was like, oh, all right. So like, how is that going to work? And then they explained to me that they wanted me to voice my opinions about 40K, and because I love the competitive 40K scene. Like, I'm super passionate about it. Like, if anyone talks bad about it, this is partly the reason why I get in so much trouble, is if people talk bad about the competitive 40K scene, I usually immediately jump on them and say, like, they don't know what they're talking about. This scene's amazing. Like, the tournament players that I meet every day, they might have their own squabbles and problems with each other, but I love every single one of them. They're all amazing guys. Like, I don't think I've ever met a guy in the competitive 40K scene that I'm like, I don't know if I should hang out with him and talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the camaraderie that I felt from my stint with debate in college, with competitive Magic, and to a point competitive Pokemon, but that's neither here nor there. So I love the competitive community, and so they recognized that, and they wanted me to have a podcast dedicated to just that. So they gave me the podcast, and then I had to make like a podcast, like a plan, like, and like a mission statement.
Yeah.
And then I ran with it.
All right. So that's interesting. So they basically just told you to do it, and you did it.
I was like, whoa, that sounds cool. It never even occurred to me to even start a podcast, right? Like, because I never thought that'd be something I'd be good at. And I don't even think I'm very good at it. I think it takes a lot of work to have a podcast, as you might know yourself. It's not easy talking for an hour or two and coming up with stuff to think about every hour. So, kudos everyone who does podcasts. Like, kudos to you guys.
So do you still take flack then for what you say, even on the podcast? Like, do you get people sending you angry emails or opinionated messages and things like that, or?
All the time. I get a lot of people who the big thing is when I say a rule wrong, that's something that you always get called out for.
Yep.
No matter how small it is, that's something If you read the comments or emails, that is always something people. This is the most common email for me. Hey, PD Pop, I love your podcast. I love the work that you do. You got this rule wrong. Could you help me out with this list? In that order. It's clockwork now. It's really, and I encourage everyone to send me emails. And just to email your podcasters and comment on it, like communicate with people who watch, if you listen to their podcast, communicate with them. It helps so much. People have so much power when they send 1 or 2 emails over me and the direction I take my podcast. And you might think that your voice isn't heard, but it usually is, because I don't get thousands of emails,
Yeah.
I don't get a lot of feedback from my listeners when you compare it to how many listeners I have. So if you, for any podcast, for CanHammer, On The Vox, Chapter Tactics, The Long War, whatever podcast, if you enjoy it, you talk to the people, just email them. And if you don't like something, tell them. If you like something, tell them. And then just, that's important. It's just good community building.
Yeah, I think it's great and definitely things can't get better unless people tell you what's wrong, right? So
that's absolutely true.
It's important to communicate that back. What do you hope to accomplish with your podcast? So you said you had to make like a podcast mission or plan. Was there kind of a grand vision at the top of that?
Well, I wanted a podcast that promoted tactical play. Better tactical play, because I feel like everyone does something different for the hobby. All the community leaders, by what I mean by everyone, the community leaders, we all do something for the 40K community that we feel the 40K community needs. For example, the Long War believes in bringing the hobby back. They believe that if you bring people into the hobby in all aspects of the hobby, people will play 40K and enjoy it more and keep the game and the hobby alive. Right, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what they believe. So what I believe that sound tactical play promotes better gaming, which in turn creates more competitive games. Not competitive like I'm going to bring my Riptide Wing and face roll your battle company, but competitive in the sense that the game's close. Both players had a really fun time. Neither player got steamrolled. It came down to key critical plays, maybe a single dice roll. That's a true competitive game where both players are pulling out all their stops to win, and you really feel like you earned that victory. And if you lose, you really felt like you did the best you could. Those are the games that give you goosebumps when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to play a game like that in 40K. When you're not focusing on better tactical play, that I've found. So when people play 40K and they're a little more casual about it, like that's fine. That's perfectly okay. If you want to play casual 40K and drink beer and have a great time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I promote that. I promote you should play the way you want to play always, and you should find people who want to play the same way you do. But when you have a casual player whose army, let's say they play orcs or Dark Eldar, and they play another buddy of theirs, and they're getting steamrolled every game by like a battle company or a Death Star, even a minor Death Star, like a Custodes Death Star or a more fluffy quote unquote Death Star, they might eventually grow to resent the game and quit. So what I found is that players who play with those armies, sometimes they can do stuff do better things tactically to maybe make the game closer, to have more fun. And if they do that and they have more fun, they might not quit the game. So that's the mission statement, is to promote better tactical play so everyone can have better games no matter what faction you're running, and not quit the game and to keep growing 40K. And it's hard, it's hard, especially when you're losing and you're getting steamrolled. For a lot of those factions, it's very easy to just hang up your gloves and say, like, I can't do anything. I can't beat Death Stars with my Orc army. I quit. Right? Yeah. It's very easy to do that. So it's something that I feel very important.
So I guess the game is about to change, probably greatly. How do you see that affecting sort of competitive play and your podcast?
So first and foremost, I would just like to get the record straight. We Frontline Gaming, we don't know what's going to happen. Like we take the hard stance of, unless GW has officially announced something, then we won't talk about it, or we don't care too much about it. We won't focus on that.
Yep.
We want to focus on the tangible now. So I assume you're referring to the 8th edition rumors.
Not even so much the rumors, but clearly something big is going to happen to the game, whether it's
right, with the
AOSing or whatever, right? Like, it's been building and something's going to happen at some point and nobody really knows when, but that's going to change the face of 40K probably in a major way. I'm just wondering how you feel like your podcast is going to, like, what are you going to change anything, or how do you see things evolving with that?
Well, it depends on the change. It depends on, if GW, if they change nothing, do they add new factions? Do they completely change everything? So with the Gathering Storm release schedule, I've focused on releasing podcasts surrounding new content. And that's just to keep people interested, not in my podcast, but to give the viewers what they want. Because a lot of people, some of my most downloaded podcasts were the Gathering Storm series with Gathering Storm 1 all the way to Gathering Storm 3, because that's what people wanted to hear. People wanted to know what was in those books and what was good in those books and what they should probably avoid. Maybe they wanted to save their money, or they wanted to know what was good so they could play with their opponents or play their friends and beat their friends, for whatever reason. That's what people want to know. So I will continue to focus on any of the new stuff that comes out, no matter what it is. So GW, they always have a really cool, fast-paced summer release schedule. So I'm looking forward to that. I have a weekly podcast. Which I'm very thankful for, because for people who have like monthly podcasts, sometimes GW will really rapid fire release like 3 things, and you have to talk about. Plus, they usually have like a scheduled main topic or something. So I'm going to continue to focus on new stuff, no matter what it is, and that's pretty much it in terms of my podcast.
Okay, more specifically about 40K itself, as a player, what do you want to happen with 8th edition?
Well, maybe not necessarily 8th edition, but I really want more of whatever GW is doing now. There's more and more people that I'm meeting in my personal life who are quitting 40K and kind of getting out of 7th edition. And I think that's because the game right now is stale. Which I don't actually think is the case. I think it's just a perceived staleness. And also on top of that, we're reaching what we call the 40K doldrums, which basically means right after the LVO, there's Adepticon, but there's not really a lot of large covered events that people are going to get excited for. The BAO is in July, so it's a bit of ways away. And I can't think of any super large, international events right now. Obviously, Adepticon just happened, but the thing about Adepticon is more of an intimate event. They don't really do a lot of broadcasting and media coverage. Yeah. There was Mini Wargaming did coverage, and GW also did coverage, which was great. Which was great for the hobby and great for Adepticon. So you always kind of get that kind of feeling around this time or between events when people kind of like burn out from 40K. Mm-hmm. So maybe when we hit the summer, maybe it'll increase. But back to your question, I just want GW to do more FAQs. They haven't released an FAQ yet for the Triumvirate of the Primarch, which I'm kind of bummed by, because I think that book needs a little bit of FAQing, and just to kind of keep the principle, like we're going to FAQ new things to help you guys. So I want to see that. I want to see stuff from Forge World for sure. I think Forge World needs to really step up their game and keep up with this fast GW FAQ release schedule. And we haven't gotten Forge World FAQ in a while.
Like years.
So yeah, it's been a very, very long time. Back, I think the Badab Wars 6th edition, Badab Wars, I think was the last big thing. Duba Mimira, the book, which brought more questions than answers when they made that book. So yeah, I want to see the two big things is I want to see GW keep doing what they're doing, and then I want to see Forge World kind of do something exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be the biggest thing I'm looking forward to right now.
Yeah, it's a bit weird with Forge World because they continue to release models, and 30K stuff obviously, but just the 40K stuff just kind of languishes on the side, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it got swept under the rug a little, which is a shame. But maybe Forge World is planning something big. Maybe obviously 30K is taking off, and 30K might be their cash cow right now, which of course any reasonable company would focus on the products that are selling. So they just released the new Magnus model, which is fucking amazing. I really like that Magnus model. So if they focus more on 30K, that's cool. But people have a lot of Forge World stuff, so I think that would be the next logical step for a big cool thing that gets everyone excited.
Mm-hmm. Competitively, GW has officially announced that they're bringing in kind of 3 ways to play, similar like they do for Sigmar, and they have taken over a lot of the tournament scene, especially in Europe, by having their own comp and holding big tournaments at Warhammer World and things like that. And in fact, they ran the Sigmar tournament at LVO. Let's say that 40K takes on these 3 ways of playing, and one of the ways is a competitive format. What do you think will happen to the ITC?
Oh, I think we'll just incorporate it and we'll adapt around it. The beautiful thing about the ITC is you don't have to follow the ITC format to be an ITC event. The ITC is just simply a ranking system and also a standardized format to provide to people for making their own 40K events. And then if GW kind of brings in their standardized format, that's actually less work for us, which means we can focus more on the ranking side. Or if GW wants to take over the ranking side for us, maybe we'll focus on just organizing a chain of tournament events. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the more GW takes off our plate, the more we'll be able to focus on other things to improve on.
Mm-hmm.
So the ITC definitely won't go anywhere. And I hope to God GW helps out with some of the tournament scene stuff, like even like $500 in prize support for a tournament, or one large Ard Boys event, which I never had the pleasure of going to, but I've heard a lot of good stories about the Ard Boys events.
Mm-hmm.
So any amount of interaction that GW has with the competitive 40K community or the events is a bonus. It's a plus. It's good for all of us.
Yeah, and I mean it looks promising because they're doing it for AOS, so I guess it's just a matter of time before they start getting properly involved in 40K again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go to you actually playing 40K. How often do you actually get to play?
Probably. I've actually been playing a lot of Age of Sigmar lately. That's kind of the new hotness right now in the studio. We all have Age of Sigmar armies. I now have 2 armies.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably slow down. But I probably play 40K right now once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So probably a game every 2 weeks. It's not a lot.
Are you allowed to win the ITC?
No, absolutely not. They already told me I can't. I've considered shooting for the. I obviously can't win the ITC because I can't compete in the LVO unless I quit my job, which isn't going to happen. So I'm never going to win the ITC unless for some god awful reason I start dominating all these events, which I doubt. But if I did, I want to compete for a best faction, I've considered just going for a best faction, and then if I win it, just give my prize support to the next highest person, or say something in my name for the ITC placement, say something like ineligible for prize support or something, right? So people know that Pablo Martinez is not a real threat. But it might just be for me personally. I could be like, I'm number 4 Space Marine, yay. But yeah, I'm not allowed to win. I'm not allowed to win the ITC. Even if I could compete at the LVO, I would still not be allowed to win. I think it would just appear. I also agree. I think it would appear a little shady, if someone internally won the event.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to fake it, though. I mean, you actually have to play against people to win. So
yeah, but I don't know. I think it would leave a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
If for example, the developers for Magic the Gathering, Wizards, if all those dudes were just like super pro Magic players who just won every event they went to, and they like knew what all the cool cards were and like all the cool strategies. I would personally not like that.
Yeah, but I mean, like
no big deal.
the GW design team was playing at Adepticon in Sigmar, so
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true, and they
were good
well.
too. Yeah, I think they did pretty well. So they obviously weren't holding back.
That's true. That's actually a good point. I never considered that. Maybe it's because the GW guys are so cool, and they're also passionate about Age of Sigmar. Because we had them in the studio for a little bit, and they loved Age of Sigmar. Like all they talked about was Age of Sigmar. Like the way we talk about 40K, they talk about Age of Sigmar all the time. Mm-hmm. Not even like hobby stuff, but tactics. Rob, the guy from Warhammer TV, he was saying all these gross, stupid things that you could do in Age of Sigmar with battalions and alliances and combinations. And I was just like, wow, these guys are not messing around with Age of Sigmar at all. These guys are really into it. So if I were to play them, I would feel like they deserve to beat me, because they seem to put the effort into it. But if there was like an Ard Boys event, I don't know. I don't know how GW would respond to that, or how if they would let their design team compete in it, or I don't know. That's interesting, because Adepticon isn't a GW sponsored event. It's Adepticon. It's their own event. So I don't know. That's interesting. That'd be an interesting precedent to see what they set.
Yeah, I guess they're just about to start the all the Warhammer Fest stuff, so we'll see. I guess if some of their guys are going to be playing in that.
Yeah.
So what armies do you play for AOS? We all know that you play kind of Space Marines for 40K.
I stayed away from the Stormcast Eternals. I played Dark Elves, who they're kind of like my underdog. This army sucks, but I hopefully will make them good. Then I really like the Dark Elves aesthetic. I always really wanted to play Dark Elves and Dark Eldar. And then Beast Claw Raiders, because I love animals and I love pigs. So I love pigs and rhinos. And Beast Claw Raiders have Rhinox riders. They're forge rolled. They're discontinued, so they're super expensive and hard to find. But so I had to go with the models that are riding pigs and rhinos.
Nice. Yeah. So I guess you're playing quite a lot of Sigmar at the moment.
Yeah, I am. Unfortunately, I know I have a competitive 40K podcast, and I wish I played more 40K. But the truth is that right now in the local scene, not a lot of people are playing 40K. A lot of people are kind of hesitant, maybe because of the rumors, because of the big change rumors, or maybe they're just unhappy with the state of the game. I don't know, but the San Diego scene seems to be dying out a little in terms of just casual like pickup games, playing once a week, or scheduling games. But we have a large event, the Broadside Bash, coming up at the end of the month, so maybe that'll change things. It should be a large turnout still, and I haven't decided whether I'm going to play Age of Sigmar or 40K at that event yet. Mostly because money's a little bit of an issue. It's a lot of money to play at events.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting that that's kind of happening to 40K in your area. I guess it really varies. For sure, I was at a tournament last weekend or 2 weekends ago, and 2-day tournament that took it out of me, and I didn't even want to look at a 40K model for some time. But then I would be like hobbying like crazy on Sigmar. So it's actually nice to have two games that are different. So you can always fall back, I find.
Yes, absolutely. And I think everyone should probably focus on playing two quote unquote formats. It going back to people who play Magic the Gathering. Do you play Magic, by the way?
Oh, I haven't played Magic since I was like in grade 9. That
Oh,
was
okay. Well,
in beta.
a while ago. Oh
Yeah,
wow, that was a long time
that's
ago.
when I used to play Magic in beta.
Oh wow. Did you keep any of those cards?
I did not know. I didn't have
Oh
any. I
damn.
didn't have the big ones anyway. But
Oh okay. Fair enough. But so in Magic they have two or three formats that everyone plays, right? There's Standard, which is the format everyone plays. It's the standard format, and that's the one Wizards promotes because it gives them the most money. And then there's Eternal formats like Modern and Legacy, where you can use any cards you want from the past, and there's like a banned list. And then there's more casual formats like EDH or Commander, as it's called now. And so everyone I talk to in Magic kind of has like their Commander deck, like their side casual deck that they play with their buddies, and then they have like their competitive Standard deck or their competitive Modern deck, right? So they fill those voids when they want to like just throw cards around, drink beers, and have a good time. They go to their Commander deck, and boom, it's there. They don't have to worry about being competitive. When people are overly competitive, they go like, "Come on, man, it's Commander." But when they play Standard and Modern, and they play their buddies, they like this is when the gloves come off, right? Like this, we're gonna play Standard, and we're gonna sideboards and fucking stop people from taking back rules and cards and moves, and it's a lot more serious. 40K I don't think really has that in terms of just pure 40K. I don't know a lot of people who have a competitive list and a casual fun list, which is why I really like narrative events and why I really encourage narrative events. Because when you're in a narrative event, you're forced to kind of play more narratively and for fun and casually. But competitively, you want to. I feel like you want to do your best, right? You want to bring your best list. You maybe leave the Terminators and Vespids at home, and you bring your best list. But when you introduce Age of Sigmar and 30K, you always have that kind of 40K list, and then you only focus on that list and improving your game with that army and that list. And then you have Age of Sigmar, which is like 40K or Warhammer's version of Commander, or a quote unquote more fun casual game, or 30K, which is similar to Age of Sigmar in terms of like casual level, and it's a lot more simpler of a game, so people should play Age of Sigmar. 30K is basically what I'm saying.
yeah, I think they complement each other.
Yes.
It'd be interesting if 40K does become like Sigmar, then maybe they'll stop complementing each other and be very similar to each other. But I suspect that won't happen. So
That would be funny.
yeah, it would be like the same game just with different models.
Gotcha, guys. Ha.
I don't know. There's some paranoid people out there who think that the timelines are merging, and that in 5 years it's going to be the same game. I don't know.
I'm one of them. I think Archaon and Sigmar are gonna duke it out in some cosmic epic fight, and then their swords or their weapons are gonna clash at the same time, and then that's gonna create another Eye of Terror in 40K, and then fantasy, all the dudes are gonna spill out of that, and the Space Marine is gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, what is this? By the Emperor!" And then it's gonna be this big war, and then the Emperor is gonna come back to life because Sigmar and Archaon are like his long lost sons, and they're gonna fuse into one super thing, like a holy trifecta. I'm making all this up, by the way. I have no idea what's gonna happen.
I don't know. It sounds like you have this on good authority.
I put a lot of thought into this. GW, if you're listening, or Matt Ward, if you're listening, buddy, come on, write this.
So,
but yeah, I have no idea, honestly.
yeah. So what's in your future gaming wise? You just can carry on playing these two games, or you're looking at other games, or
I don't really like dabbing into any of the other tabletop games. I considered getting into War Hordes, but I just decided I'm going to stick with 40K and Warhammer and basically GW games, mostly because I like the fluff and the lore and the models, and also because it's what we primarily here play in Frontline Gaming. I might play more Drop Zone Commander because I really like that game. But in terms of my future for 40K and Age of Sigmar, I plan on playing a lot more 40K events. I've got a ticket to the Iron Halo If you're going to the Iron Halo, it's in Oklahoma. It might not be too far of a drive for you guys. It's going to be a large 2-day event, over 100 people. It'll be a blast. So I'm going to that, and that's probably the farthest I've ever traveled for an event. I also really want to go to Nova or ATC or one of the large events that are really far away from me, that are kind of like the bucket list events. And then, of course, if I can, I'd like to compete at the BAO. There's obviously the Broadside Bash coming up. There's another event in Idaho I plan on going to. So I plan on traveling a lot more for 40K events and actually trying to do as well as I can in them, and basically boosting my ranking. So it's a little more respectable, because last year I think I was in 1,000th place or 1,001st place. I was really low. So I want to work on that.
Do you think that going to more tournaments and things like that kind of almost like raises your cred as a tactics podcaster?
Yeah, I think it should. I think that's the natural conclusion. Is a guy who goes to a lot of tournaments probably has good authority to talk about competitive 40K and tournament 40K. And I'm in the tournament scene. Like, I talk to a lot of people who go to a lot of tournaments, and I get their feedback. And I listen to podcasts especially when the podcasters have just come back from an event. For example, your team tournament talk that you guys just had. I think you guys just streamed it on Twitch.
Yep.
This is it's Tuesday today, so
yep.
Whenever you listen to this, but yeah, so I listen to things like that, just to so I can kind of keep in the community, the tournament community. But yeah, I'd like to go to more events. I think people would not take me more seriously, but I would take myself more seriously as a podcaster.
Cool. Like, you don't get anybody coming up to you and saying, "Yo, you don't hardly play in any tournaments while you're doing a competitive 40K forecast." Blah blah blah.
Oh, all the time. Mostly friends, people who joke around. Like my ITC team, Relentless D. Sometimes those guys will mess around with me a little bit, but it's not really seriously. It's just more of like a personal thing for me. Like I really want to, go to more events, and I really want to learn more about the game and get really good at the game, because I feel like that's what my listeners deserve. They deserve a guy who knows what he's talking about.
Cool. Well, actually, that's kind of all the questions that I had for you, Pablo. Anything else that you wanted to add for our listeners out there?
Yeah. If you guys want to if you guys liked what you heard here on The Vox, you want to listen to more, you head over to frontlinegaming.org and search Chapter Tactics, or you can Google 40K podcast Chapter Tactics, and listen to some of my episodes. I have links to all of my episodes and all of the posts on the blog, so you can kind of go into that history and look to pick and choose which episodes you want to listen to. And then email me, frontlinegamingpdpub@gmail.com. PDPub is spelled PETEYPAB. Email me if you have any questions about 40K, or if you want to know, if you want to get into the game, or if you're worried about your list or whatever. I like talking to people about 40K. I think it's what I enjoy doing the most. So
yeah. So when you email Pablo, be sure you include one rule that he got wrong and then a list at the end. So that's
I'm sure
the standard
one
format.
Rule here. I'm sure I got a rule wrong here already. I'm 100% sure of it. Yeah, make sure it's in that format.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me tonight, Pablo. It was great to speak to you and to actually get you on the other side of the mic. And it's quite insightful. And so, yeah, just thank you for coming on The Vox.
Hey, no problem, Darren. I loved the episode, so I was really, really glad to hear it. I hope to hear more.
Cool. So for listeners out there, if you want to hear more on The Vox, just let us know if you have anybody you want us to interview. Most people are fairly accessible these days through the wonders of the internet, so I'm sure that we can get people on. And thank you for listening, and have a good evening.